Hey everybody, welcome to Obscurities and Miniatures, and boy do I have something to share with you, which you probably already saw in the thumbnail or bothered to read the captions, provided you are literate. I'll take either one. Today we're going to talk about the new starter set, two-player starter set at that, from Steamforged Games. And just like the previous one, everything is in plastic. And I had a lot of fun with the last one, and we've got a couple of just random models sitting here to pass the time away, because I was fondly reminiscing as I was getting ready to film this video that ever since the olden days of Warmachine, like around the time of Mark II really rolling out, I have always had a majorly horrible habit of painting warcasters and warlocks, and then solos, before I hit or attempt to paint anything else. And nothing seems to have changed. I feel like Carver was probably one of the very first of the newest version of the game that I really jumped in on. And then I started to acquire a lot of the... Oh, I did paint his face. The Crick stuff in earnest, and have been really slowly... I'm like, again, with the Warcasters, painting up things. I really like the Cathus here. I think that's his name. Something like that. Our good old Iron Liches. And despite the fact that I have pretty much a nice, solid, stable selection of Cricks, then with the Khador versus Cygnar starter, I promptly got actually all of the Khador stuff finished up. I do not have the last of the unit or the Warjack handy, but then I got distracted because the Chimera were really rolling out. And I'll be honest, anytime you have a non-human faction, you can pretty much guarantee that I'm going to be paying very, very close attention to it. And again, this is one of the casters. I have started painting some of the units, because again, much like Cricks, I've got a veritable selection of units to play with. It's just a matter of getting everything painted. So today we're going to absolutely make things even worse for ourselves, and we're going to start picking apart the new Shadows and Scum box. I, for some reason, thought it was Scum and Villainy, but that seems obviously a little too on the money. But why... Whoa, if we can get the camera to cooperate and not just lose its balance there. That was unexpected. So, why are they going to be an absolute distraction for me, as I was about to ramble on, is the fact that we've got Khymaera, robotic dragon people things, and my very first true faction, the one that really got me in to Warmachine and Hordes in the first place, the one that really made me commit to actually playing, to learning the game. It's been a while, but good old-fashioned Trollbloods. And I cannot believe, even better than having big raging trolls, now we've got shark people. They may have really leaned in with the pirate theme. I mean, Privateer, has always had a bit of a pirate thing going on. And I've never really been a big fan of it. I will be honest. I know a lot of people like it. I'm not one of them. The dragon dudes with dual blades and giant robotic wings and stuff. Oh my god, yeah. You could absolutely sign me up for that. So here's what we have in terms of character models for this set. Both warbands come out at 30 points. Both have a warlock, a war beast, a solo or two, and then a unit of 3 models. So, you got everything you need, but more importantly, let's see what we got. I don't think there's going to be any terrain this time around, but I could be completely mistaken. Inside the box, we got a nice little versus mini poster type thing going on there. Nice little paint guide. Actually, you know what? It's a shame. This would have been a perfect little paint guide on the back to have, in addition to all the steps to get playing, to get the rules, to read more about the game. That's just my random opinion. Besides that, we've got all the bases necessary right here. This looks to be the Khymaera sprues based on the wings. Obviously, this is going to be the trolls then. They are zip-locked. A little bit easier to get stuff out then. I take that back. It's not just trolls. There are wing parts in here too. That is definitely trollish. So if you haven't seen the video I made on the first starter set with Khador versus Cygnar, I had a lot of good things to say. I really, really enjoyed putting the models together. There were a lot of work on some of them, but it was a fun, productive work. It was nowhere near Malifaux levels of insanity, which if you're looking for that, I can highly recommend some things to you that will really challenge your mental capacities in terms of keeping them. But I digress. That has nothing to do with what we got here. So everything is going to be pretty much, not push fit, but, you know, easy monopose. There's no multi-part, but all of the pieces are designated for one specific model in one specific stance. Now, I would strongly recommend looking at the website, which may or may not have instructions. I cannot remember. But honestly, it doesn't look too complicated looking over the various parts here so far. Now, this last sprue looks to be mostly the parts for our war beast, obviously. One thing to make mention of is the plastic sets, so far at least, have not had multiple options for the war beasts. As I try to grab the other bag here, it's pretty much what you get out of the package, and that's the only way to really run them. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing for you is up to debate. Me, I like to keep things simple. When I have too many options, it tends to make me, you know, withdraw from the game in terms of just overthinking things, which is never a good thing. This looks to be primarily all of our giant worms parts here. I do like the fact that the wings are a single piece, so that's nice. I've had too many multi-part wings lately I've been dealing with, both in plastic and 3D printed, and I'm happy to see that none of that is in place here. There are going to be a lot of wings, and I'm noticing that just about every single one of them is going to have their own little keyed sequence, so that's a good sign. Another thing to point out, and I'm looking everything on here. Nope, okay. I was wondering, here's G parts up in the top, but then we have C parts down here, and I am assuming then that we are going to letter off each individual figure to keep things nice and organized. So don't clip off every single part at once. Not going to be the best of ideas. You will want to take your time and make sure that you at least have everything nice and organized. Speaking of organized, I am going to get organized and start building these guys so that we can immediately show them off to you, and more importantly, hopefully get started on getting some of them painted. At least the Warcasters, unfortunately, and most likely the Chimera. So if you want to see how any of that stuff turns out, then sit tight, and I'm going to be happy to show it off. Okay, folks, I couldn't help myself, and I marathoned through and built the entire box already. I would normally, if I wasn't going to film things, probably really take my time and relish this set. I didn't do that, though. I went all in hardcore, and I feel like I've done a reasonably decent job of cleaning up all the figures in the set. And I gotta say, I really enjoyed that. I feel like I've said that before, and especially with the previous starter set, but it really does apply. The figures themselves were a lot of fun to build, a lot of parts. I like intricate kits. They're not overtly difficult. I mean, there are some small pieces, but everything has a place and a purpose. And honestly, I didn't even have to check online to figure out how to build anything, which was kind of a nice touch. So we're going to start with the Southern Kriel Trollbloods here. I forget which specific version of them they're operating with for this sub-faction. But we have Commodore Foulblood here. And honestly, he is a great throwback to the trolls of old. A lot of character in that sculpt. One of the things I really love about the trolls here is that they feel like those old Rackham confrontation type models, just kind of whimsical, fun, lots of little things all over them. There's a lot of action going on here. He looks like he'd absolutely be hanging out with fun guys like Borka. Man, I miss Borka. He was a great model. But definitely a good sign of things, and honestly, it absolutely really was the worst of my expectations in the fact that while I had no interest in picking up more Trollbloods going into this, I have now found myself spending far too much time looking at Steamforged's site and figuring out what I want to get next. So if that was their plan, then it absolutely worked. Not sure if he's supposed to be in a 30mm base or not. I don't have the app handy, obviously, if I'm filming this. Pretty sure I've got at least all of the Khymaera stuff on the right ones. Let's take a look at the solos. First up, we got Mr. Boggs. I think he is the only pig in the set. Not the only pig so far released. I really like his uniform there. Interesting gun. And then we have Sully. Could I have done a bit better job of putting them together? Sure. I do like the fact that I did a decent job for the most part, considering this is at a 4x zoom. Getting everything cleaned up reasonably well. Yeah, there's some mold lines here and there, and yeah, there's some gaps that if I really wanted to get picky, I could fill in. Take his aviator goggles. And then Sully is going to be accompanied by our little pig friend here. I forget what the little ones are called. The ones that the trolls used to always grab and eat to power back up and heal themselves. So Sully is another model. I'm not 100% sure if he's on the right sized base. I put him on a 40mm just because his little friend here is supposed to stand on the side, waiting to light everything up. Obviously, he's not glued, and I don't know what happened to all my blue tech. It has completely disappeared, and I will be having words with children later to see if they bothered to take it and not mention telling me, which I can absolutely see happening. For our unit, so the units in these starter sets are made up of 3 individual figures. I don't remember their names, but these are the Lockabash brothers. And their look really gives me some Trollkin Highwayman vibes. And again, the Rackham influence, I feel like you've got the little bandages, everything all strapped on here. No random livestock. I put these guys on the 40s, belly button sticking out as always. Again, lots of random fun stuff. Holes, tatters. You don't often see trolls wearing full-length pants. Always they're ripped off. I like his little bowler. Brass knuckles are a fun touch. Like I said, there's a lot of fun character for these models. Parts fit together really nice. If I was to do it all again, I would absolutely take my time. Like I said, smushing pieces together. I think Foulblood here was the most noticeable gap there on his back, the way he fit all together. Bit of a weird fit the way his hat and the monkey are going to attach to the head and the shoulder. It all kind of locks in place. Most of the kits, I feel, didn't really have any major issues with how they needed to go together, except for a couple parts on the Chimeras. But we got to take a look at Chum here. Absolutely great looking beast. Big, stocky, thick, heavy, and firmly attached to his base. Yes, I don't need to go pinning everything down. I remember those days. I'm happy about that. Even his little fish friend here. He's going to be a fun one to paint. Now, he looks large. That's the thing. Also, these models, in case you aren't familiar, are quite large. So, if all you're really interested or used to are things like Warhammer in its various styles, you can see here the trolls tend to be a little bit larger than the humans. And then grabbing, for example, one of the Khador guys here, you can see that there is definitely a size advantage in terms of dealing with the trolls. But they've always been big, and traditionally they were always on 40mm bases, so I really got to double check that to make sure everything is where they're supposed to be. Now, with the Khymaera, I know for a fact that our unit of guys, the Shades, are going to be on 30mm bases. I was kind of surprised about that, but man, are they gorgeous. If you like dragons, lizards, gargoyles, what have you, these guys are great. I love that kind of middle dorsal fin they all have going on too. So he's the most stable of the bunch. We have one who is dashing / flying. Their blades, I know they can throw them or close in for close combat. I'm assuming he's supposed to use that tail as a bit of leverage. And then finally we have one more. And they have those cool little wings. It's back spike dorsal fin things. So even comparing them with the trolls, you can see they're pretty decently sized, and these are just the unit guys. I mean, obviously the wings are definitely going to give them a bit more, I don't know, dimension. Every time I look at those wings, I want to see them in like translucent plastic, and I get like flashbacks of Mage Knight Solanavi guys, and the Draconis. I like some of the late stage Mage Knight stuff. That's a whole different story for a whole other time. So that was our unit of guys, and for our solos for the Khymaera, we have Pythia and Regulus. If I remember correctly, Regulus is the more ninja-like one. I put him on a 40 just because I think that's the only thing that's going to fit him there. He's got like that jute and caltrops in his hand, which is a fun one, and he gets to play all kinds of fun repositioning shenanigans and espionage tactics. So, yeah, it's all about getting him close in position to sneak around and mess with the opponent's caster. Whereas Pythia here, it's a pretty neat sculpt. One of the more demanding in terms of parts, just due to the cloak and robes and hands and wings, and I'm assuming with that name makes me think female, but there's no way to really know. I know she's a channeler and can upkeep spells for whichever caster she's got hanging around with her. And finally, speaking of casters, we have our caster who seems like he's probably going to be a bit more melee focused. That is Valix here. Much like the little guys, he can hurl those blades. And since he's got them on chains, I guess drag actions are available to him as well. And then the usual fun stuff that the Khymaera get up to. Gives me flashbacks. What was the big one that the Legion had? Azrael, Azazel, or something like that with the two swords he was jumping up. I want to say he was a solo war beast or something. I painted that. I painted a ton of Legion war beasts. And again, just using a good old-fashioned Khador guy here. And you can see some of these Khymaera are almost verging into like light war beast, light warjack territory in terms of their size. They're big kits. They're big models. And like I said, these, actually all three of them, the Warcaster, Valix, as well as his solo buddies here, really, honestly, lots of parts involved there. These are the ones I would take your time with, and I believe it was Regulus who was a little bit of a challenge in putting together. So he's got like this pack and these scrolls on him here. you actually need to attach the robe underneath on the bottom side of the pack first, then attach that to the leg and body. And I want to say it's the same thing here. You need to actually attach this wing, which is going to connect with the rest of the body, and then you can slide in the other leg. Speaking of wings, it bears mentioning that these guys' wings are really sturdily supported. That's always been a big, major pet peeve of mine when you have, you know, big, elaborate wingspans and then tiny, flimsy connection points. These guys have really solid connection points, really thick gates and keys to get everything attached. I was really impressed. And finally, we have Achilles, our big flying snake. Not as big as the worm wyvern thing we had on the 80mm base for the Khymaera, but big nonetheless. He definitely looks like he's going to be able to go toe-to-toe with our big fishy troll friend here, Chum. So, I gotta say, for everything included in the box, it doesn't seem numerically like a lot. You know, it's like, what, 6 figures a faction, basically? Caster, Beast, unit of 3, and 2 solos. But when push comes to shove, we had at least, I don't know, 6+ sprues? 5 or 6? Worth of plastic here. And, I mean, the final models themselves really are going to be just top-notch in terms of, you know, thickness, durability. They look like they're meant for gaming with. And if you've dealt with enough modern figures, especially with the 3D printed stuff, you know that gaming isn't always on the forefront of creators' thoughts, it seems, unfortunately, when designing these figures. With the exception, maybe, of the connections of, like, some of the more delicate Chimera. I mean, you know, your trolls are nice, chunky, sturdy figures. I can't see people really having any difficulty with keeping them in one piece. I say that and I'm like, well, challenge accepted, I guess, for myself, right? But no, they really do seem like they've been designed for gaming. And that's something that I feel is always worth mentioning and calling out, because that's what these are for. And as much as some people go to great lengths to make absolutely amazing and beautiful paint jobs on their figures, I have no intention of doing that. I want to see my stuff actually get used, so it's going to be fairly simplistic and straightforward. I know I've shown off my, what was his name, Khyris, I believe? Khyris? I don't remember, but the very first Warcaster Warlock for Khymaera. You know, he's a little bit thicker, but considering these are a different shard, if you will, I don't see that being as much of an issue. I definitely look forward to trying to get everything here all finished up by the summer. I recorded this in the spring, hoping that since I actually have some time, that means since there is one store that actually still regularly has Warmachine games active and ongoing at, I'm hoping to actually bring these to the table in the relatively near future. So I'm going to need lots of encouragement to actually get off my butt and make sure I'm painting, because honestly sometimes it's a struggle to sit down and do it. But you know what, when you got nice looking models like this, I eagerly look forward to it, and hopefully I am going to be able to do them justice. So stick around if you want to see how they turn out. I will probably have them show up on some random Monday whenever I get around to it. So keep your eyes peeled for that, and hopefully, if you guys haven't had a chance already, do take a look at the links, which we will have down below to directly take you to get these goodies, because, hey, we know you want to as well. So, with that said then, this has been High Lord Tamberlane with Obscurities and Miniatures, saying thanks for watching, and we will see you back here soon. Bye-bye.